2 days before we got there, Shelley was woken up at 5 a.m. to be told that Vesseline was in labor. And her car wasn't working, so she hiked 25 minutes in the dark over crumbled rooftops to Vesseline's tent. She examined Vesseline to see if it would be okay for her to travel and found out she had a bad infection that she was too embarrassed to have told Shelley about. Shelley called for a tap-tap and held and comforted Vesseline for a half an hour until the tap-tap got there, and then held her in the tap-tap till they got to the hospital. The roads in Port-au-Prince are horrible. It's like four-wheeling up Menashvash, and that's what she had to go on in order to get to the hospital. She gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, Pierre, and she might not have Pierre today if Shelley hadn't been there to help her. She took Vesseline home from the hospital and let her stay in the little apartment that was downstairs. She didn't want him to go back to the tent, and now she's looking for funds to help fund an apartment for Vesseline. In Haiti, everybody pays their rent once a year. That's the only way it's done, so you can't just have a small, a monthly amount. You have to pay for the whole year before you can move in. 2 days after Pierre was born, Vesseline's mom came to meet him. Then she went home to her tent, and she hadn't been feeling well, and 4 hours later she died from cholera. It took her that quickly as her body didn't have the reserves to fight the disease. Shelley found out Sunday morning before Vesseline was told, and she wanted to be the one to tell her so she could comfort her immediately, but because of something to do with their culture and how they believed, they wouldn't let Shelley tell her. But as soon as Vesseline was told, Shelley was definitely there for her to comfort her. The same morning, someone came to tell Shelley that two of her artisans that had been with her the longest had been selling jewelry that she helps them make to another source. This broke her heart as she considered these ladies her friends and had helped them through many trials in the past. And she had to call them in and talk to them about it, and that upset her a great deal. On Monday, Siamese, our cook, came to Shelley and said that her 16-year-old sister, Siamese, was in labor and only 7 months pregnant. Siamese needed to borrow $500 so she could take Siamese to the hospital, and Shelley gave her the money. Siamese had a healthy 6-pound, 6-ounce baby girl. She brought her to a parent on Thursday to meet us. She still didn't have a name for her. She didn't seem to be bonding with the baby at all and didn't really seem to know what to do with her. She often had a blank stare on her face. Shelley was pretty worried about her and the baby. She said that this is common when these babies who are babies are having babies. Her 19-year-old boyfriend wants nothing to do with Siamese or the baby. Shelley said that there was a good chance that this baby won't make it or that the baby will be given to an orphanage. On Tuesday, Shelley told us about Ismelda, a 12-year-old girl who is being adopted by an American couple. The process can take up to a year and a half. The girl was living with her aunt but would need somewhere else to stay until the adoption could be final. In Haiti, once a child is spoken for through adoption, the community around the child treats the child poorly. Ismelda needed a safe place to stay, and they had asked Shelley previously if she could stay with the Clays, but Shelley felt she had enough on her plate with 4 children, 3 teenage boys, and about 80 artisans to care for. The adoptive couple looked for other options and could find none, so of course Shelley agreed to let Ismelda stay with them. She is hoping it's only going to be for about 2 or 3 weeks until Ismelda can be put in a home that someone is starting for children who are waiting for adoptions to be final. On Thursday, Shelley introduced us to Alita, who is one of her jewelry makers. She had come to tell Shelley that she couldn't provide for her son any longer, so she was thinking about putting him in an orphanage on Friday. Of course, this upset Shelley greatly. They started the jewelry program so that mothers could provide for their children and not have to give them up. We all bought some jewelry from Alita. Hopefully she didn't have to give up her son on Friday and can find a way to make enough jewelry to keep him fed. Besides all these major issues, Shelley also had to take care of fixing our power because we had too many sewing machines going and it caused a fire on our transformer. The guest house ran out of water one night because of the power problem. She had to find sewing machine repairmen when our machines didn't work, and she was constantly guiding the young mothers in how best to take care of their babies and children. They really don't seem to know. They like to wrap them up in lots of layers and then they will die from being overheated. Even simple things like that, they just don't know. These were just the dilemmas that Shelley told us about. I'm sure there were more during the week. According to her mom, Marilyn, this was a normal week. Any one of these issues would have thrown us for a loop. Shelley knows that God sends her the people he wants her to help, and she does it with a joyful heart. God has truly blessed the Haitian people by sending Shelley and Corrigan to them. They all truly love Shelley and Corrigan and appreciate all they do for them. Shelley said on her blog, they have nothing. Their children are starving, and they acknowledge Him, the Creator, with love, respect, and honor. I am not a missionary. I do what I can do, which is try to help economically where I see the need. And I believe that it is a mandate set out by all God lovers to help the poor in whatever way they can. But as for what I can offer spiritually, I prefer to sit at the feet of Sonia as she sings her soulful prayers and soak that up. I receive much more than I can give in this area. I'd like to end with James 1:27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Thank you.
This is Carol. Thanks to Leanne who put these together. I can't hold that up and talk at the same time. But, we're sorry that Carol can't be with us, and I know how much she wanted to be with us today, but she's loving up on a baby. Carol put this together for us, and we were writing what we were going to say, and then we really didn't get a chance to put it together with hers, so it's not all in the same order, but Carol spent a whole lot of time this week working on this, and we're so thankful to her for doing that. Carol was going to talk a little bit about the sewing program and some of the ladies in it, and we found out when we got there the first day that we were going to start teaching at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. So that didn't give us very much time to get ready. And when we took a look at the rooms, we were trying not to panic. And we don't have a before picture, but this is one of the sewing rooms after we got it relatively organized. And this is the room that Carol, Wendy, Mary, and I were in, and we taught the beginners. If you go to the next slide, that'll show the treadle room, where Arda, so there's lovely Arda fixing the treadle, right? Because we had some that didn't work when we got there. And so we were busy organizing and reorganizing the sewing rooms, and then Shelley, when we met them the next morning, divided the ladies into two groups. And there was a group that already knew how to sew, and they had treadle machines, so that was easy. So they went into the treadle room. And we took the beginners in the electric room. All the ladies were just delightful and so eager to learn as well as to please us. And the language barrier was a little interesting, but not really a big deal, as we had expert translators that we'll tell you about a little further along in our presentation. The next slide will tell you about the end of the first day. These are the ladies in the treadle room displaying their first project, and these are their professors proudly showing their students off and what they made. And we did diapers for our first project just so that they could learn to sew straight and kind of get the kinks out with the sewing machine. And we were glad to learn from one of our translators that diaper in Creole is diaper. So that was one less word that